welcome to the new stimulus package. Us, you and me and everybody who's doing something positive in their community to try to bring about positive change. I want to thank everybody who see me on the street and say, "Hey, I saw you on TV," and I really appreciate it. I'm trying my best to bring you the best programming I can, and introduce you to people that's doing stuff in the community that try to help it become a better place. Here in the studio with me today, I got a good friend of mine, Sonny Francis. How
How
you
you
doing,
doing,
my
Ken?
brother?
Hey, Ken, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So in this program, we're going to talk about uh, another friend of mine, and yours too, Ross Marcaroni. I hope I'm saying his name right. But this guy is a dynamic guy, but he's getting a lot of bad publicity. A lot of people don't know all the good work he's doing in the jail system. He's got all kind of programs to help the those people that's made a couple of mistakes to put them on their feet. You know, he's got a school program. He's got a lot of programs going on. So, do you know Ross,
I can
Sonny?
I can speak from firsthand experience. When I first returned from Vietnam back in the '60s, I was unfortunately a resident of the San Bruno facility for 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a sheriff at that point, but all we did, as I recall, was play dominoes, do push-ups, or like you said, do nothing. And I think that since he's become sheriff, from what I've heard, he's implemented quite a few programs to help inmates not only in jail but when they are released.
Yeah, I mean, to listen at the radio, I listen at KGO, and man, a lot of times I want to call in, but I'm driving on the freeway, and that's pretty much the only time I listen at that channel, sometime. And man, they be talking about the cat really bad, but they never talk about what he's doing, the positive things that he's doing to bring to reduce recidivism. Recidivism is when people go back and forth to jail, and he's cut that way down low. So recently, my buddy, another buddy of mine, Frank Williams, he interviewed uh, he interviewed Ross right here on this show, and we're gonna bring you that interview in a couple of minutes. But folks, what I want you to do is go on the internet and look at the positive things that Ross is doing, and before you just don't listen at the radio. You know, look into it because we need to keep that man as sheriff because he's doing a hell of a good job. You know, and he's got all this other stuff that happened on his watch. You know, I mean, the guy. Yeah, I ain't even talk about what happened, but you know, he's getting a bad rap on that. You know, but we should look at what he's doing to help San Francisco and the citizens in the city, the positive things, because all that stuff going in the wash going to wash out in the wash. So anyway, what I want to do is bring you that segment where Brother Williams interviewed the sheriff Ross Macaroni.
I'm Frank Williams, and we have here on the show today, which I'm proud to say, one of San Francisco's finest, Sheriff Ross Mercarini here. We're going to ask him a few questions about him on the personal side, find out about the sheriff, find out who he is, what make him what he is. So I'd like to introduce you to Sheriff Ross Mercarini.
Thank you, Frank. Good to see you.
How are you today?
I'm well.
But we'd like to have you on here because we want the viewers to get to know who you are, Ross Mercarini. Who is Ross Mercarini? So let's start off, about who you are, how you got into politics, how you became the sheriff, and what is your main ultimate goal as far as helping people? Because you're a person that really care about community, you care about people, and I know that was a lot of questions in one. So I'm gonna let you take it from there.
I'll try to synthesize it as best as I can, but thank you for that lead. And It's good to see you and Ken, who I know is working the board here. Well, real quickly, I come from an immigrant father. I'm the first Iranian-American sheriff in the United States, at least currently serving of any major city in the country. Iran is a lot in the news these days, so sometimes I often hear people in context to stuff that's happening internationally and globally. But when my father came to the country, where he met my mother in Chicago, where I was born, he was working as a security guard at the YMCA, and throughout his life until he had passed away, he ended up running the Chicago YMCA. So I was exposed to that level of community service with communities that were often disadvantaged. And then through my mother, she became the EEOC director. She was a civil rights leader and a feminist in the late 60s and early 70s, and became a state worker after my folks had divorced in the state of Rhode Island for over 25 years in fighting really for civil rights in the workplace. And so I was really absorbing, I think, the values and ethoses of both my mother and father as I was with them and alternated between them. And I think that that helped shape my politics. And then when I went to undergraduate, I went to a Jesuit university and another university in St. Louis, and I was brought up kind of under liberation theology about the activism about Central America, and that really honed in on my politics. And then I got into public interest law because I believed in really helping disadvantaged and distressed communities, and for the last 30 years, that's what I've actually been doing. And I apply that in law enforcement. I think the criminal justice system has been designed to be incredibly unfair and unjust, especially to disadvantaged and distressed communities, to communities of color. And I decided that people of my political spectrum should not fear being in law enforcement or paramilitary institutions, or even in the military. I'm actually told I'm the last elected official that's a military veteran in San Francisco. I didn't even know that until somebody told me that, unless somebody corrects their record. So I try to apply all that into the kind of work we've done together. And it's really improving public safety while reducing our jail population as best as we possibly can so that lives are improved for people that don't return back to the criminal justice system. And I think we're all working for the same thing.
Well, that's incredible, and it's good for the people to get to know just who you are, and with your vast knowledge and upbringing into the movement of working with people and being exposed to it by your parents. That's a great thing. So we can kind of see that you're really proud of how much you have accomplished throughout the life.
It gives some context, I guess, yeah, and it's a question I don't always get about sort of my background and my family's background. And I'm proud enough where I believe, especially through my wife's own background, she being Venezuelan and I being Iranian American, with some Russian in me, that our son will benefit handsomely, I think, from it too.
So tell me, how did you feel then when you became one of the board of supervisors? And tell us in context the barriers you had to overcome to advocate for people who, as you know, in criminal justice, it's about more about community safety than the rights for prisoners or ex-convicts.
Agreed, absolutely. When I became supervisor, elected in 2004 for District 5, which encompasses Haight-Ashbury, the Fillmore, Western Addition, Japantown, other Inner Sunset, other neighborhoods, you know, I felt that both government and community and law enforcement were just surrendered to the high crime norms that took place. And I disliked the fact that there was this apathy from everybody about what was occurring in the community, and I just wouldn't settle for that. And so I really pressed hard for community policing. And when I found the police to resist me about just simple features like walking a beat, you know, where there had been serious, you know, public safety challenges, distress, but I wanted police to walk beats just to get to know the community and the community get to know them. But I never expected the amount of blowback that I would have gotten from the police, that actually caused me to develop a very close relationship with Sheriff Mike Hennessy. Because I said, if the police weren't going to help us, I'd go to the deputy sheriffs. And that was a conversation I started in 2005. And when the deputy sheriffs weren't poised to do this, I legislated a number of laws to require a level of attention that just wasn't there, and the neglect by city government and law enforcement to the communities. And I didn't want conquerors. I didn't want sort of an oppressive presence. What I wanted is what didn't exist except in affluent communities. And that was a level of trust building mechanisms that President Obama and his 21st century policing was actually predated by many years before that. That is almost old guard and old fashioned way of policing. You know, you get to know the officer who's walking the beat and the officer knows them. And those are the features that really build that level of rapport that had dissipated many years earlier. So I wanted that returned, and I wanted to hold that accountable. And I build on that in my aspirations to help reform further in law enforcement. I also believe that when we had the second largest population in public housing, I couldn't understand why services weren't built into the very neighborhoods that people were returning from county jail system. You know, for like better family reunification, job vocational placement. I mean, we put the first one-stop job training center and placement in the Western Addition to Safeway off the Fillmore. You know, so it was that level of, I just thought just common sense strategies that were long overdue. And I think that that really helped prepare me in my run for sheriff after Sheriff Mike Hennessy decided he wanted to retire. You know, and then towards the end of my supervisor days, before I became sheriff, state prisoner realignment was being born by the high courts and Governor Brown. And I authored about a half a dozen laws that prepared San Francisco, ordinances that prepared San Francisco in anticipation of realignment. And fast forwarding in my time as sheriff, we've done very well by realignment in this county, this city, much better than, frankly, almost any other county in the state of California.
Yes, in fact, in San Francisco used to be one of the highest in incarceration, in recidivism.
That's right.
Across the state of California.
Couldn't understand why that was the case. And that number was in the high 60s, 65 to 71% is where it fluctuated. And that remained unchanged for at least 20 years while they were counting. You know, before that, they really didn't have any sort of understanding. But now it's dropped considerably. I hope it stays dropped. I'm concerned about this changing San Francisco and the class divide, the economic class divide of people who can afford to be here versus those who cannot, and how that might translate into the criminal justice system.
That's a hot topic, but more into what Sheriff Ross Mirkarimi have done. People don't really know like the programs that they have within the San Francisco County Jail, what you're doing for reentry, what you're doing for like parenting, those type of programs that are in place there. But there's one program that you really help author that would like for you to just take a couple of seconds to talk about. That's really successful is the No Violence Alliance Project, the NOVA project.
Well, that goes back to my activism and advocacy when I was a supervisor before I was sheriff, because I went to Sacramento to fight for the dollars, the first $500,000 grant when I was a supervisor. This was long before I even decided I was going to run for sheriff, for the institution of NOVA, No Violence Alliance. And thanks to people like yourself, Lou Gordon, CJ, so many others that are involved, Kathy Davis, your partner, you know, really has seen ups and downs in, I think, the focus of NOVA, because it really required us to re-up our commitment in making sure that we were dealing with a more complicated, population that was coming through our system. And NOVA has really been one of the most effective responses to that in a post-custody environment.
Well, another to your credit, there's a couple of more to your credits too, because you help also author, before we say goodbye at the end of this, you really helped co-author one of the first pods in the nation, collaborating with the San Francisco Adult Probation.
We did. It's called the Reentry Pod, which we got the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and some Sacramento legislators to invest in a pilot laboratory reentry pod, which you've been a very big help in, to deal with whether it's the youth, meaning young adults in our pod, or seniors in our pod, coming together, we're dealing with the very specialized criminogenic needs so that they don't recidivate. But there's so many things, like we're the first county jail system in the United States to reduce the visiting age from 18 to 16 so we can better reunification between children of the incarcerated and of the incarcerated parents and their guardians. First county jail system in the United States to institute Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is part of our normal discharge planning, so people are signed up for health insurance. First county jail system in the state of California institute the Birth Justice Project. And I think we're being interrupted because I know there's not much time.
Well, we know since you've been there, there's been a lot of firsts, and we want to have you back on so we can go further into the discussion.
I'm sorry it was so
that
rushed.
people can get
Sorry it was so rushed.
to know you, but
Yeah.
you know you gave a good amount of vast information for right now for them to get to know who not only who Sheriff Ross Mercarini is, but who's Ross Mercarini is.
Thank you for the question, Frank. Thank you.
And
It's
we
been a pleasure.
appreciate having you.
Thank you.
Thank you
much.
very
All right,
much.
man.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Man, that was dynamite, man. I didn't really think about when Ross was supervisor. He was really in the community, man. He was really he was doing a lot of good stuff, and I didn't know that he had took it upon himself to talk to Mike Hennessy to try to straighten the police out, man. That was great, man. See his heart, and plus he lives in the community.
Yeah.
See, his heart is where his mouth is. You know, it's just a lot of people that give a lot of mouth work, but then there's no action behind that.
Yeah.
You know, and that he's a good man. He's somebody that we need to keep where he is. You know, and his next move up should be to be the mayor. That's what I think. So
I have reservations, and I've always had reservations about the criminal justice system coming from New Orleans, Louisiana. It's a whole different ballgame, believe me. I am glad to see that we have a person like Ross, and I'm glad to see that I didn't know he was a veteran, and my kudos to him because I am also. I don't know if we fought in the same wars, but right on. And I think that, as you said before, recidivism, like when people go back to jail, if they don't learn anything while they're there, when they get out, they can't vote, they can't live in certain places, they can't do certain things. All those issues need to be addressed, and I think he's doing a very good job at this point of addressing them, even though he's facing adversity from a lot of the people that are in office down at City Hall.
yeah, I mean, I was at his kickoff occasion event they gave down at Delancey's. I think the place is named Delancey Street, down on Fisherman, down on the wharf, down by the piers. It's not on the wharf, but it's right across the street. And Mayor Art Agnos was there supporting him and saying about other cities are trying to duplicate what he's doing in their jails because it's saving them money by reducing the recidivism rate, which people don't even know about. See, these different radio shows that's talking about him, they ought to call him up. They ought to call him and talk to him. Call him on the line. You know, don't be. You can listen at other people and people call in, but call him and interview him. That's what he told me. He said he wished they would call him, let him respond. And folks, those people that's watching this show, you call your radio station and tell them to call him. Just don't talk about him. Let him speak for himself, and then see and then you understand what he's doing, because he's doing more than I know to try to help the people. He's always did that, even when he was supervisor. You know, he lived in the community. He did things for the community, and he's a good guy. He's really a good guy. So we're gonna have him back. He's just so busy. That interview you saw, it wasn't a half. We just had it was just about 10 minutes, but he was running then. So we stole that. We stole that little 10 minutes, but we're gonna have him back. And this is a call-in show, so those people that are curious about him, you'll be able to call in, and be looking forward to that show. So tell us a little bit more about Ross. What you know about him?
Well, one of the things I know about Ross is I have seen him in the community. And when I said seen him in the community, I don't mean at the community forums. I mean I've seen him walking down the street. We have invited him several times to come over to the park and play dominoes, and I hope that he'll accept that invitation at some point. But anyway, it's good to be able to relate to a public official in that manner. And I'm not trying to degrade him or anything like that, but I think that if he played, he'd be uplifted a little bit. But anyway, it's his option. I think that also we need to, as a community, with our rate of incarceration, African Americans in particular, we need to get behind this man and support his reforms that he has implicated in the San Francisco jails. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, he's not just letting them turn the key on you. If you go to jail for a length of time, he's letting you come out and learn something. You know, I think they got a computer program in there, I was told, where at least you can learn basic computer skills. So, because now it's a lot of jobs, when you apply for them, they point over there to the computer. You got to fill everything out on the computer, you know, and you might even have to go online to get that document. And the basics, you got to know some basic stuff. So he's doing a lot of stuff that people don't know about and they should know about. So our time is, and once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure.